We get to Melbourne, last year's minor premiers.
Probably the toughest draw out of the entire competition.
Yeah, very tough draw. I'll just double check Manly's draw too.
10 games against the top 6.
Melbourne have 10 games against top 6, and just quickly, Manly have a pretty good draw. They've got a very forgiving draw. Pappenhausen, Coates, Olam, Smith, Meany on the wing, Munster. This is their best team, so obviously they're going to miss a few games early. Hughes, Bromwich, Harry, Welsh, Kafusi, Bromwich, the Cheese at 13. Kamakamika, did you get locked up the other day? I haven't heard.
No, I don't think anything's come of it.
Nass, Eisenhuth, and someone like Chris Lewis will round that squad out.
Did you say Big Nelson in that lot then? Did you?
I did.
Yep.
We don't know yet. Yeah, no,
He's back. He's back training.
Yeah. Just say he's on the bench. I'm on the bench.
But there'll be probably games
So,
where you can't go.
Gumpy, this is their last hurrah. They're about to lose 8 of these blokes somewhere else. I guess Harry, Munster, and Pappy, and if we can control the team, which is a pretty bloody good spine.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, Gumpy, where a Melbourne business as usual as well, or is this a tougher year?
No, top 4. Top 4. And actually, now that players are leaving, if you twisted my arm to put money on someone to win the comp, I would pick Melbourne.
Melbourne is still definitely going to be there, aren't they?
Only because they're the type of team that play for a reason, and I think that milestones and stuff, and they know that the window closes probably after this year. They've lost the Bromwiches, they've lost Kafusi, they've lost the Cheese, and there's probably other players on the radar like a Munster and blokes like that may move on. So, look, when we talk about teams improving or whatever, they're not any worse than they were. They were 2 points off the grand final last year in that game against Penrith, and really, I tipped Penrith to win the comp at that game. Melbourne were poor. It was the worst game they played all year. They must have made 20 errors in that game. We've dropped ball.
Yep.
So I just think that, and every year, and I've probably done it too, and I've said, Melbourne will fall off this year because they've lost this player or lost that player, and they haven't. And this year they haven't lost anybody that's going to, like, they've lost Finucane and Nico and whatnot, but those blokes were just bit players for the Storm. They haven't lost anybody of note. I just, I think they galvanise, and it'll be, this is our last hurrah for some of these blokes. Do we win for them and give them the fairy tale? That's what concerns me. And if you put a gun to my head, that's who I'd probably say I'd put my hard-earned on in terms of that now. So that's my view on the Storm sort of moving forward.
You mentioned Belair going barn. I'll ask all of you guys. Would the cat out of the bag internally be that maybe he's going? Maybe that's why some of these guys are.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is last season.
Well, he has signed until 2026, but
isn't that as
in the contract?
director?
Yeah. This year as a coach, and then I think at the end of the year he has an option in his favour whether he wants to, and it's an undisclosed role, which will be coaching director or general manager, whatever. General manager, or
for 5 years, whatever it is.
Stay on as a coach, which is interesting. I guess if Melbourne do drop off a little bit, does he stay another year to try and
I think it might be his last year. I think maybe he said to the boys it's his last year.
Are we seeing it as a definite?
As Gump said, a reason to play for. So, mate, it's my last year.
Is that the other? Yeah, is that an added reason?
Yeah,
absolutely.
On top of what's already been mentioned.
The other interesting thing is they'll have touch wood Harry Grant all year, which they didn't have. And I assume they'll now structure the game around him. Jerome Hughes went to a different level last year. He was outstanding last year. Munster came good at the end of last year. I'm going to get your microphone close to your mouth there, Barn. And you're getting Pappenhausen back. So in terms of an actual spine, it is probably the best spine in the comp still.
Close to it.
And the forward pack's in the conversation for best forward pack as it stands. And them and Para, I think people get a bit ahead of themselves. Them and Para is what next year's going to look like as opposed to this year. But easy top 4. They're going to be who they are. They're going to beat a lot of teams. They might get beaten, though, because there were times where their defence was exposed.
And their attack was a bit confused.
And they went real
times.
Weird at times and conceded silly points to silly teams. I think Newcastle had on the ropes for a bit. Or Cowboys had on the ropes for a bit and teams like that. And that could come up again. Kamakamika was, will be a big loss because he was just starting to come good as a dominant forward there. But again, a bit like Manly, like play it again. They're going to finish probably top 3 realistically. Just where I put them, I'll work out in an hour's time.
Just on the Storm, and I don't know whether we mentioned it at the Bulldogs, has Isaac Loomy gone to the Bulldogs?
He has.
Yeah.
And we didn't mention him.
It's weird. He was officially training with them before he signed with them. They were uploading photos
The
of him before he
cross-eyed
signed.
Isaac Loomy.
Yeah,
he might be in the Bulldogs starting team.
He's got
quite
punters' eyes,
possibly
he
would
does.
be.
You know
Isaac
what? For a
Loomy.
winger,
He's
for a
got one
winger, he
each way.
wasn't bad, was he? Like,
No, he
you
went
can't say he was bad. Like,
Yeah. And that could be a bit of a miss for Melbourne. They might still play Jennings on the wing, and
Well,
I think Nick Mooney goes all right, but he's not offering the same on the wing as what they've been offered in the past.
Especially losing Josh Adokar as well.
Correct.
The best winger
he's
in
a
the
big
game
year
in
for-
the last 4 or 5 years.
And it's a big year for Coates because he's a spruik winger in the game.
Did we mention the ins and outs?
No, I haven't mentioned. Yeah, no, I did. I read him out. Barney, what are your thoughts, sir?
I think it's probably a negative trade period for them. Only just. I think they're slightly.
No, maybe I didn't.
I think they're down slightly on losing Aaron Booth, Josh Adokar, Finucane, Hines, and Branko Lee. I think that just weakens their edges and their outside backs a fraction. But it's Melbourne. They're probably the best coach team in the comp. They seem to get the best out of every player that ever comes into their squad, no matter who they are, whether they've been a nuffy for any other team that's run around. I'm worried about Nelson and Kamakamika. If Nelson can only play 50% of the games because he can't get into different stadiums and whatever, and Kamakamika's out for the season, that's a lot of go forward that they're gonna miss in the middle there, and Finucane as well with his defence. And he's not a bad go forward guy also in the middle there for the Storm.
He's a loss.
We didn't actually. I don't think we did actually mention it. Adokar, Atkinson, Booth, Finucane, Hines, Jacks, Max King, Branko Lee, Penne, Smoothie, Churahui.
Yeah, so I think they might lack a little bit of go forward just through the middle, which may limit what they can get out of Harry Grant out of dummy half, a fraction. They're still going to test every opponent they play against in every game that they play. Still got plenty of talent in the squad, and they'll match it with pretty much every team most of the time. But I'm loath to tip them to miss the top 4 because last time I did it, I think they won the comp. But I'm actually going to go on record and put them down to run 5th this season.
I've got them finishing 3rd, exactly. They are my 3rd contender in 3 contenders that I think are any chance of winning the comp, to be honest, and I feel like GT, our stat man, should maybe do a tally if he's got that much time on his hands to see how many times we say geek in an episode, because I'm going to say it a lot, and Melbourne are going to flog geeks still.
Absolutely.
They're still going to be, I think, a top 4 team. I think they're going to run 3rd. Jerome Hughes, I think, is now, for me, I know this is saying a lot, but I think Jerome Hughes is now the guy at Melbourne. Seeing last season, everything that's going on with Munster, Cheese is on his way out, everything, I think, and Pappenhausen's injury issues, I think Jerome Hughes is now the guy at Melbourne. I like the signing of Nick Meaney as well. I think overall it's still been a negative sort of window, I guess you could say, in terms of transfers, but I like the signing of Nick Meaney. I think at the Bulldogs, you'd be able to expand on this a bit as well, Gum. I thought whenever he played at fullback at the Bulldogs, he was solid. I'd say out of all the options over the past 3 years that they've tried out, I'd say he was probably the best. Towards the end of last year, I think he was running for nearly 200 metres a game. Like, in attack, he's still got that flair, and he can play fullback, centre, or wing.
And he's fast.
He's your first backup for all of those positions, especially with a Pappenhausen who, fingers crossed he doesn't, realistically could get injured and be out for another 10 weeks again next season.
Plus
Nick Meaney's not the worst player to bring in place, especially now he's in a good team.
On papers, the New South Wales 14 and blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. He could... We could see him in a same mould as we saw Nico Hines last year, just because of that Melbourne system and the role he's playing
that's
in
exactly why they've signed him.
Exactly.
They knew Nico was going, and they thought who's the best available, and they've got him, and they're generally pretty astute with their buys and picking up blokes, and probably outside of an Aaron Shop for the Bulldogs last year, Nick Meaney, or for the last 2 years, has been probably their most reliable conveyance. So. Yeah. You know, I think that Melbourne have got a player that can fill the role. Maybe not as good a player as Nico, but fill that role.
I don't think so. But you bring up Jennings as well was maybe a bit of a concern. If Jennings isn't playing well for the first couple of weeks, now you've got a genuine replacement for him. You could chuck Nick Meaney in on the wing because you have that big winger in Xavier Coates on the other edge. So I do really like that signing. Overall, of course, Melbourne have regressed a bit, but the same theme. So is pretty much everyone. So they're still going to be up there. They realistically still could win the comp. And you know what? It seems to be in the years that no one's tipping Melbourne to win the comp, or where people are tipping them to miss the 4 or the 8, they usually flog everyone and win the comp. That's usually how it works. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What can I say?